As journalists and television hosts, scripts are a lifeline. Each newscast, each story, it all revolves around a script.
But now it's time to go unscripted. That means we're not just going off script, we're throwing out the script altogether.
Each week, we're joined by fellow Farm Journal hosts and editors to peel back the layers on stories we've shared throughout the week.
Unscripted. It's real, it's raw, it's entertaining, and it's your chance to meet the personalities behind the personalities. I'm Tyne Morgan.
And I'm Clinton Griffiths. Welcome to Unscripted.
Our last Unscripted of 2024. Clinton,
Man, it's gone fast. Yeah, it is.
We're talking about 2025.
I know. Well, we're halfway through the decade. You know what I mean?
Well,
like it seems like just yesterday we're talking about, it's 2020. Hey, it's gonna be a big decade.
And 2020 was a big year, unfortunately. When I first started with Farm Journal, which was in 2012, we did that series called Farming 2025, and it was looking at what is agriculture going to look like in 2025. And,
awesome.
I remember the stories that we did. It was tiny robots taking over the field and all of these things. I think about George Jetson, like what year were the Jetsons? Because I made the girls watch that the other day because they said, the Jetsons, who are the Jetsons? And I said, well, I'm going to show you who the Jetsons are.
Sit down and watch it.
And there's so much of that's just so funny what we thought that things would be like in 2025. And I'm gonna have to look and see what year the Jetsons was what year it was based upon. But I mean, we would have robots taking over, and you think about in ag. I mean, we may not have robots, but the amount of automation, it's truly impressive. But it's we thought we would be much more automated by now, Clinton. So it's just interesting to see what we thought things were going to look like in 2025, and now heading into the year, what actually things do.
I always find like the new year kind of a fascinating way to reset. To give yourself a clean slate and reset and kind of take a fresh look at everything. But I'm with you. I thought things would be a little more advanced, but that's kind of the nature of technology. It doesn't. In some respects, it doesn't move as fast as we would like it to move. And then in other respects, it moves incredibly fast. Yeah. Like just the way that people consume media, right? Like that's changed so much. And in cell phones and the fact that all of the things that one phone, this one thing will do used to take just bundles and bundles of stuff. And that wasn't that long ago, to be honest.
I was a little off because apparently George Jetson was born in 2022, but the show is set in 2062. So by 2062,
we still got time. You can get that jetpack. There's still time for you.
We could be teleported and different things. That's what could happen. That's my hope. I mean,
well, let's bring in our guest today.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I know we're a couple days after Christmas, but we can only, for this podcast, we could only give you the greatest Christmas gift of all time. And you know what that is? The greatest Christmas gift of all time is Machinery Pete.
He's shaking his head.
I just want to put a red bow on you, Greg, and just gift you to someone. I mean, it is the best. You are the best gift.
Hey, I can answer your Jetsons question in terms of when it aired time, because young Machinery Pete was like 5 years old watching the Jetsons. So about 1970, 71 it aired.
Okay.
George, his wife Jane, daughter Judy, son Elroy, dog Astro. So not that it left an impression on me or anything, but
no.
Right. They just, and I know, we talk about, you talk to farmers and they're like, they just don't make those tractors like they used to, a 40-20, I feel that way with cartoons. Like they just don't make them like they used to. Jetsons, perfection, Greg, perfection.
And, in the commitment level, it wasn't just the cartoon itself, but the theme songs to each cartoon. Right. I mean, literally, that if you wanted me to, I could sing the whole thing.
So can I.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Think of the movie. You guys probably watch it, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the movie, 1987, I think. John Candy, Steve Martin. Think of the scene in the bus where they're taking the bus to St. Louis, and they're singing songs in the bus, and John Candy breaks out the Flintstones, and everyone knows the theme song to the Flintstones. That's 1966, so that's when they did cartoons right.
Well, and it is amazing how those just get lodged in your memory. Once you hear them and learn them, those things from our childhood, they just don't go away. But I would say that's a pretty pretty long run because, you know, I grew up in the 80s, so a decade later, and those cartoons were still on every day, and I still watch them. So I know all of those theme songs as well. And so, you know, it's a fascinating little slice of Americana. But, you know, Greg, as you look at we're halfway through this decade, did you think things would change or be further along than they are as far as like technology and automation, et cetera?
Well, it's interesting on me because I'm kind of smacking the equipment sector, so it's in my face every day. You're talking about a 1-year-old combine or a tractor or, you know, tillage. My goodness, has tillage changed? Get these high-speed discs now, not just what they're selling for, $140,000 used, but, you know, just when you said disc 35 years ago when I started, I mean, that was a disc. I mean, it was whatever. It's just this little thing behind your tractor, not so little, but now the technology, even in those, I mean, and it's, so we see it with equipment. And I think, guys, my biggest takeaway is, you know, I just turned 59 and I stand there and I watch like a 1989 55 series Deere tractor or a Magnum tractor, Case IH, sell. And that was new when I started 35 years ago. Now, you know, it's really funny. So 35 years, if you went back to when I started in 1989, 35 years backwards at that point was 1954. And, you know, I remember starting in 1989 writing about antique tractors, and they were, you know, we were saying antiques 35 years old. So now we don't think of these, you know, 55 series or Magnums as quote unquote antiques, but you put them next to a 1-year-old tractor. I've been to 8 auctions in the last few weeks around the country, and yeah, it takes your breath away. I think sometimes change, it happens so continually that we just don't stop.
Right.
And when you line the tractors up, that's when you go, wow.
Look at the difference.
Look at that X9 1100 combine next to that John Deere 6620. It's amazing.
Well, and Greg, we featured a farmer by the name of Chase Saylor on the show about a week ago. 29 years old, Southern Illinois farmer. I mean, you just talk about cream of the crop, the nicest guy. Like, he was just so hospitable, just a great farmer. But he had a GPS ditch grader, you know. And so when you think about some of these tools, where you know, you look at wet spots in the field and some of the things that, you know, he had relied on in the past, tiling and things that were really expensive. I mean, this GPS ditch grader is not cheap, but he looks at that tool as one of the greatest investments that he's made on the farm. And you look at that technology and you may not think, oh, wow, like this is all, it's running by itself. It's doing all of that. It's not. I mean, you have to pull it. But what that technology is allowed that farm to do. And he said, no longer is it a guessing game. Are we having these low yielding spots because of compaction, of it being too wet? Like, all of the data now we comb through on a daily basis, and we know exactly why that spot in the field didn't yield the way it was, and then we go and fix it. And he goes, and we like to look at our mistakes more than we do our successes, because that's how you get better. And so I just think about some of that stuff, Greg, is it's not like we have, you know, autonomous tractors on every single field in the farm and all of these robots planting our crop and all of that. We don't have that coming into 2025, but there have been some changes on the farm that really, when you talk to farmers, have been a game changer and have allowed us to get better. And I mean, even over the next 5 years, I'm excited to see what happens by the time 2030 rolls around.
Well, I think data kind of is at the core of it too, which makes me smile because, you know, I didn't realize it 35 years ago when I started, but, you know, that was a big data play that I was making. It would be 25 years before anyone said big data. But the more information you have, and now, of course, with, you know, everything's computerized. And it's funny because it gets dogged a lot about, you know, yeah, it sucks when the stuff breaks down and it's computerized and all that stuff. But, you know, farmers do appreciate, obviously, the advances of helping you be better with, you know, the wet spots in your field or whatever. And it is just amazing. What I like to do, Tyne, is to get that 29-year-old farmer next to his grandpa.
Yeah.
And just listen and ask a few questions because, yeah, I've never thought that the ag space gets the credit it deserves for leaning into this technology. You read the stories in the wider press about, you know, driverless cars for Amazon or whatever, and hey, oh wow, that's cool. And it's like, shoot, that's been, you know, farmers have been leaning into this stuff for they just like bring it. What
For a
can
long
you
time.
give us to help make us better? They're all about that.
Yeah, Greg, do you think people are willing to pay for technology? What have you found as far as like if you have a tractor that's got some tech on it versus a tractor that doesn't have some tech on it? Because there's different models of things. Are people willing to pay for it, and has that changed in the last few years?
And that's a great question, Clinton. I think that they're willing to pay, but they do not like the subscription model.
Oh,
They want to
interesting.
pay for it up front, and then I bought that's mine.
Hmm.
And then they, the Apple method, and Apple's revolutionized all of business. So, it's seeped into everything that we do and that we consume and buy. And it's certainly understandable how any business would want to go, wow, continuing revenue stream, sign us up for that. Now, okay, you got to train your customer that this is good. Now, with these things, like you guys were referencing earlier, these cell phones, for whatever reason, we all go, oh yeah, that's fine. But when you fork over $800,000 for a tractor,
Yeah.
and then you want X more for it,
Mm-hmm.
it's all in the market. The older I get, the more I realize everything is marketing. It's kind of storytelling. It's how you convey the message. But key to that is how well do you know your customers who you're selling to? And if they, if you try to push something on them that they don't want, not only is it, that's a double bad. So don't do that. So there's a little friction going on there right now with the subscription model, I think.
I think you've just led into our next segment because that was was juicy, Greg. But let's lead into our next segment, Talking Tea. Okay, you talk about driverless, cars and things like that. Greg, I'm just letting you know now. Our girls are big Elon Musk fans, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's the things they watch on their iPad from time to time. I don't know, but they're big Elon Musk fans. So they're begging, and they want for Christmas a Cybertruck.
Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Well,
Greg,
Cybertruck.
we live on a gravel road, okay?
Yeah.
Things that don't make sense. One, I can't keep my phone charged, let alone my car charged. I put off putting gas in my vehicle, not because I procrastinate, because I don't want to stop for 5 or 10 minutes and waste time doing that.
Tyne, when was the last time you ran out and had to get pushed in?
Okay, knock on wood, never.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, apparently, even though it says
You've
0 miles. Well, even though the car says 0 miles to go, you can actually go a little bit further. I found that out. But anyway, I don't. And
This is like Seinfeld. We can push the needle, yes. Jerry. Push the needle.
Totally. I will. I will push
that
the needle. But I just don't want to. I drive with a purpose. And I want to get from point A to point B, and I don't want to slow down, and stopping for gas slows me down. I can't imagine having to stop for an hour and charging my vehicle. Greg, like I won't do it. So it's not for me. Anyway, but that's what they want.
Interesting. My family, we went to Norway in July. We took my wife's mother, Lois, my mother-in-law. She'd never been to the homeland, so we took a 8-day trip, and we had our kids there. And I'd never been to Norway. I've been to Europe a few times, England, Scotland, Ireland. But it was interesting. We had an electric vehicle there. It's like all electric. And
Really?
we stayed in Bergen, which is the big port there. And these huge ships coming in, and they're all like emission free.
Oh,
so
interesting.
they're, right or wrong, they're so far ahead of us there. But it was interesting on the charging front. We were like you, Tyne, at first. We're like, oh my gosh, this is such a hassle. This is, but once we did it twice, we were like, okay, it was no big deal. So I see the same thing in farm equipment, and we're all human, and change is difficult and stuff. But the Cybertruck thing, that's interesting because a lot of love for Elon across ag country now. But the Cybertruck,
it's had a hard time out in some of the rural reaches as it's tried to get around a little bit. Maybe a little bit of the wheelbase. Maybe it's too heavy. I'm not sure, but it's
I don't know.
That's a bit.
Maybe we'll start seeing a few out there. I see them in the metro areas when I drive around, and
Right.
They always catch your eye. But I don't know out in the rural areas with now it's snowed 6 inches, and it's liable to be 20 below here next week. So I don't know how they perform in those conditions, but we'll see.
Greg,
On the
when
way
I
back
was
from Texas, we counted how many we saw on the way back from Texas the last holiday when we visited. So I mean,
How
it's
many
exciting.
did you see?
Like, it's a Cybertruck.
how many did you see?
Quite a few. And do you know how much they are?
They're not
Stupid.
free. They're
Stupid.
not
Very.
free. They just don't give them away.
No, and I get it. Like, I mean, Greg, I guess it's with used equipment too, but you look at new vehicles and my question is, where does it stop? I mean, trucks,
Well, it's just we
SUVs.
say that in tractors too, right?
I mean, well, that's the point. Like, when you look at vehicles, $100,000 now for a vehicle, there's quite a few SUVs and trucks that are in that range. And a Cybertruck is a little bit more than that. But Greg, I mean, that's like now it's become the norm. And I talked to James about it, my husband about it the other day. I'm like, where does it stop? It's the same way with tractor prices. How much higher can we go? It is crazy how much we've seen. You look at the technology and how much we've seen that advance. You look at equipment prices and you see how much that's gone up. It's just, I mean, where does it stop? Where does it end?
Yeah. Well, I actually wrote a column over my 35 years. I've probably written about this topic, I don't know, over a dozen times, but I always refer to it as the plank on a pirate ship. So I've been reporting on the space 35 years, and it seemed to me like the price of new equipment, give or take, kind of 4% annual increase, again, give or take. But then when we hit the pandemic and all the snafus there in the supply chain, and then the money flowing into the system, and of course, times were good in ag, and labor costs just skyrocketed. That 4% just got obliterated. So I just wrote a column for Farm Journal. I think it maybe ran like a month ago, and I had to bring up the pirate ship, the plank again, because all these years observing, it's like you can raise the price, and it seemed to me like you're inching out on a plank on the pirate ship. The farther you go, and will you ever get to the point when you get to the end of the plank and you go, whoop, poof? Well, I guess we went too far. And so now in ag country, I mean, you've got a great test because dollars are tight, and the price of new equipment has never been higher. And if you're an OEM, the number one thing you don't want to do is back up on the price of new. You want to hold the line. So the things we're seeing, obviously, with the slowdown in new sales, then you've got these mass layoffs, deep layoffs, not just the production line, but across corporate. Obviously, whether they're overvaluing the shareholder, it feels that way sometimes or whatever, but also, again, they're trying to keep that new price point. And I hear you, a new pickup, a new car, everything is so expensive. And of course, inflation, you bring in that argument. But I don't know. I just always wondered if you can ever hit a point where you can't go any higher. And I guess my 35-year history would tell me it just always does go higher. In fact, I was in sale I covered yesterday in Jasper, Missouri. I stood there talking to a guy. It was an old dealer. He'd been a John Deere dealer from 1988 to 2008. So he said, Greg, the first new combine I sold was a John Deere 9500, which now looks like a pea shooter. And he said that thing cost like $86,000 new. It felt like a ton. And of course, now a new combine of any color can be, over 800,000. So can it double? Can it be 1.6 million? I'm like, I think as you get older like me, you have to fight being the cranky old guy. And you're like, no, can't go any higher, can't go any higher. But it kind of always has.
If demand's there, that's the thing. If demand's there.
The thing that's scary to me is what's being normalized, like on automobiles. Now it's normal to do like a 7-year payment instead of 5-year. Right. Or, the normalizing $1,000 a month vehicle payment. It happens all over the country. You have to do it, for people in that spot. But it's like, wow.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me that 20, 30 years ago, I'd have said that. And there's no way that could ever happen. But here we are.
We will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
We can't control the weather. We can't affect the global demand for corn and soy. We can't even fix that piece of equipment you swear is still good if you just have the right part. But BASF can offer you 0% financing on our proven, consistent performing fungicides. Our grower finance program is here to help you maximize your yield potential and savings with 0% APR on some of the highest performing fungicides available until March 15th, 2025. Because now more than ever, every dollar counts, and you can't beat 0% financing on innovative corn and soybean fungicides like Revitech fungicide, Revilock fungicide, and Veltima fungicide. Keep more in your wallet while improving your yield potential. Talk to your BASF retailer today about the Grower Finance Program to lock in 0% APR. Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions. See BASF Grower Finance Program for details. Always read and follow label directions.
What are you seeing as far as, I mean, it's the end of the year. It's always the hot time of year for sales going, through kind of this kind of tax season type of thing. But what are we seeing as far as demand out there for equipment? Is there an appetite for it right now? Or is it just because there's some deals to be had?
Yeah, it's one of the most unique times I've ever seen in 35 years, honestly. I'm kind of calling it choppy. So it really depends on what we're talking about. So if you are talking about sales of new equipment, particularly to the grain farmers, that is, you can look at your AEM numbers and you guys report on them. I mean, the sales have dropped way off. And we understand why. Now, if you flip into the livestock sector, sales of new are better and used values are much, much robust. I stood at this auction yesterday in Jasper, Missouri, and they had a JLOR 5575 vertical TMR mixer. They're probably like 33.5, second highest I've ever seen. Intense bidding on that. So livestock guys have a little money. But then, a week and a half ago, I stood at a sale in Southeast Iowa, consignment sale. It was a higher hour combine, but it was a 21 model X9 1000, almost 1,200 engine hours, and that went for like $345, which is a big number. But that was like $40,500 lower than I'd ever seen an X9 1000 sell for. Now, it did have higher hours. So we've got all these different things happening at the same time. But you asked Clinton appetite for buying equipment. I guess, again, the longer I do this, you just realize that, base level farmers, I mean, you got to have reliable equipment, whether it's new or used, to farm. We just came off the fall, maybe the least hassle-free fall ever for harvest. The weather was perfect, never rained. Guys just went full bore, and that's great. But everyone knows it's like, ooh, that probably means next spring or fall could be like the opposite. And again, you can't have downtime. So even when dollars are tight, you have to have your harvest equipment, your planting equipment. It's got to be ready to roll. And so to me, one of the most interesting things I've been seeing lately, and I've never seen this big of an emphasis before, but there is a lot of large late model equipment on dealer lots. But 2024 to me on the equipment front was the year of dealers being more aggressive than I've ever seen them ever. Smacking out. I mean, I just looked through December 10th this year. If you took all the 0 to 3-year-old equipment, all types, sold at auction, it's up 399% versus the first year of the last downturn in 2014. 400% more 0 to 3-year-old units sold at auction. Now, that's not fun for dealers to do that. They're taking huge losses. But they're in a spot. If they keep it, they're paying 8% interest on the lot. And we just talked about the rising price of new. So 20 years ago, your used combine on the lot was maybe $200,000. Well, now it's $450,000. And now you don't have 2 stores, you got 30 stores. So you don't have 8 of these things, you got 87 of them. And you're paying 8% interest. So they take them out to auction. The thing that, and it's really interesting because farmers don't like the fact that dealers have consolidated like they have over the last 15 years.
For sure.
But the reason the manufacturers drove that, Deere in particular, was because of handling these downturns more efficiently. So these larger dealers, they're getting creamed on these auction prices, but they're capitalized different. They can handle it. So one thing that I've been pointing out is it's a little bit dangerous, I think, for farmers. You have your history, like Tyne, you mentioned that 29-year-old sharp farmer, and I brought in, his grandpa. you have this collective history. Okay, when times get tight, dealers always have too much used equipment. I'll be in the driver's seat for a few years. When I do need a planter or combine, I'm going to get a great deal. The rate of turn on late model used equipment now is something we've never, again, 400% more than it was a decade ago. So to me, what it looks like is, those we talked about manufacturers wanting to hold on to the price point of new. So you're at, and they lay off employees, they shut down plants. And the one thing that's different this time is the manufacturers and the dealers are tighter in their communication.
Wow.
So they have one mission right now, and that's to smash down late model used inventory. Not so much sell new. It's like, yeah, we want to sell new, but let's attack problem one. And so, 2025 will have a lot more of this. 2025 will be a good buying opportunity for people for equipment. This whole thing is going to turn faster. So whenever corn and beans go up, you're setting the condition again for what we saw in 21 and 2,
Right.
where you're going to flip a light switch.
Pent-up
And
demand.
the manufacturers are tight. They laid all these people off. They won't have that new equipment. Then farmers will, whenever that switch goes and farmers have money, everyone will want to buy new, and there won't be enough. And guess what that does to the price of new? You're going up. That makes my 4% annual increase seem ridiculously small.
Greg, I was talking to an economist this week and looking at, okay, what needs to happen in the ag economy for us to turn things around, especially on the row crop side. We do the Ag Economist Monthly Monitor. Most economists say, yes, we're in a recession when you look at just row crop prices. But I asked, especially when we were talking about this possible direct payments to farmers out of Congress and all of this that, a week ago was the big debate. Anyway, so I asked him what needs to happen. He said, one, we need more demand. Plain and simple. We need more demand. The second thing is we need a reset in equipment and input prices. Things have become so elevated and costs are up, 30% when you look at some of the costs on farms. And I don't even think that's including equipment. But anyway, we need a reset when it comes to prices. Do you think that is starting to unfold? I mean, you're talking about still seeing like second highest price ever at that recent auction. But when you look at used equipment prices specifically, are we starting to see a reset take shape?
Well, you could make that argument, Tyne, that we might be in the early stages of that, because as 24 unfolded, and again, farmers, we get it. Your dollars are tight. You're pulling back. That's always, and there's been a lot of new and used equipment purchased in late 20, 21, 22, early 23. So on one hand, it's like they're positioned to just sit tight because they have pretty good updated line of equipment. But what I track where the dollars flow. And so, when they're pulling back on the late model stuff and those, compared to the price of new, what it sells for, the retail, that's I've never seen such a big gap. But where the tight dollars are flowing is into the nicest condition, 10-plus-year-old stuff. And it's to the point where, beyond all the data we compile, again, those 8 auctions I just covered in 5 states, it's what people verbalize. So it was a sale in Bible Grove, Illinois. This was December 12th, farm retirement auction. Great guy, Dean. Can't remember Dean's last name, but great guy. And he had a 2014 Challenger MT865C that he had custom painted jet black. It's just beautiful. 1,450 hours on it. And he told me he paid $250,000 for it 4 years ago out of California. Now on the sale, it brought $341,000. But it's 10 years old. And again, what's a new one cost? That price of new. So all those years I've been writing about that pirate ship plank, that's exactly that conversation you just had with that economist, Tyne, is that, can it go any higher? It doesn't feel like it. And farmers vote with their checkbook. And they're, again, because they need reliable equipment. So then you drift into the pre-def stuff and that whole argument, if something happens, it's easier to fix. But they are definitely voting with their checkbook. And I said at the top, there's pushback on a subscription model. They don't like that. So that you could wrap that in there too. Like, we just, no. But again, it's complicated because farms are bigger. And sometimes it doesn't matter, again, just bottom line, you have to have reliable equipment to do what you got to do when you got to do it.
Yeah, they're probably spreading that cost out over more acres, and so you know, if you look at it as a cost per acre, and you're covering more acres, well, then you're trying to keep that cost in line or the same. I would assume if you have a bigger, more expensive unit, that'll cover more ground.
Yeah, I haven't done any. That it's a good point you bring up there, guys, in talking about this. That reset. I mean, Farm Journal. I mean, what goes back to 1877? I would think there, someone should be assigned a mission to go back and look at the downturns and downturns. Right. So I've been doing my thing for 35 years. I can report on what happens downturns from equipment for 3.5 decades, but input costs, what happened to land values, because history is a good teacher. But then again, I think like Clinton, you guys were talking about, the cell phone and how it changes everything. And I just think that things now are condensed. Everything moves faster. And so if we know what happened in the past, has there ever been resets on pricing? And I mentioned, to me right now, it feels like OEMs are they have the price of new up here. And this would be, Chevrolet and, I suppose same with a refrigerator or whatever. The price is high and they don't want to come back. They don't want to drop it. So you just have to figure out a way to hold that price anew. And when the dollars aren't there, it gets, things. That's why I said things are choppy right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Tyne, should we jump on and go to our next segment?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do What the Sigma.
All right. I've got my question for Greg. What the Sigma? What is the craziest either auction item or auction price you've seen this year?
This year?
Yeah, we're looking back at 2024. So this year, right?
Well, okay. So if I have to pick one auction,
year I'm in.
there was a sale in the spring in, I think it was Berlin, Wisconsin. I think it was R&M Motors, a used dealership, but also I think the owners were kind of collectors. And they had 3 John Deere tractors in particular. They had a 4055 and a John Deere 7510 mechanical front and a 4555 mechanical. So again, this was the spring. Things are starting to recalibrate. Used values are coming down. And these were crazy low hour. And you might have to give me a minute. I might have to look this up because I don't want to quote a wrong number. You just put me on the spot.
Oh my gosh. I was just about to say, because I had 2 follow-up questions. One, do you have a photographic memory? Because I didn't even prep you for that. And you're rolling this off the tongue like not
roll. It's unscripted, folks.
I can't even remember what I said yesterday. My other question was going to be, you were in Wisconsin. Did you visit a supper club? That was my 2 follow-up questions.
Did you do a Friday fish fry?
Yeah. So while you're looking that up, can you please let me know, did you visit a supper club?
Where was this now? Oh, when I was in Wisconsin. Okay, I was not at the sale, but Wisconsin does. Again, I'm a data guy. They clearly have the highest concentration of supper clubs in the world. It's awesome. And when you go to a supper club in Wisconsin, you have to get a Brandy Alexander. You have to.
Well, explain to people that maybe are playing along at home that maybe don't know what a supper club is, Greg.
A supper
because
club
it's very Wisconsin.
It's a piece of my past. Again, I'm so old, but 59. But yeah, God bless them. The Wisconsin people are awesome. They've held on to this tradition where everything, has changed, and they're just said, screw it, we're not changing. We like our supper clubs. So it's just a restaurant that is not designed for modern speed or convenience. It's you go in and it has its own pace, not European pace, slow, like we're gonna have 4-hour dinner, but generally tend to be a little darker, kind of like late 60s to late 70s motif. Sometimes
they haven't changed the carpet since the 60s. So just go ahead and say it. Carry on.
Carpet, paneling, and the food is awesome. But it's the local. So you're in Sparta, Wisconsin, or wherever, and it's just like, every town has it's Barney Supper Club.
So good. So, Greg, you said it was part of your past. I'm setting a New Year's resolution. I would like to make it part of your present in 2025. So I'm saying we need to go to a supper club. That's what we need to do. Okay?
Oh, that would be awesome. We should do a meetup time. We should have Greg take us to his favorite Wisconsin supper club and then do the podcast from there. That's what we ought to do.
Greg?
Machinery Pete TV also should be at a supper club in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Are they
This
called
is a great idea.
popovers? Are they called popovers? What do you get served first? Aren't they popovers?
I don't care what you call them, but they're delicious. Yes, popovers.
Right.
I don't know what they call them down south, but
Well, I mean,
And
we
you said
probably
a
call them-
brandy. Obviously, you got to drink Wisconsinably when you're in town.
Yes.
But what's your favorite? You got a little.
well, the brandy in Wisconsin is, I don't know why, but it's they take ownership of it. It's what's that's hey. So like I drink old fashioned, but it's brandy in Wisconsin. Where anywhere else you go, it's not. So my dad likes brandy Alexander's. I mean, it's just good. Just try one, you'll like it. Okay, I found the sale, guys.
Okay.
Okay, and then I've got a follow up. We're talking about alcohol. I do have a follow up. I guess I can do that in the next segment, but I don't
Okay.
want to forget.
All right.
Okay, I'm
I do have an
telling
alcohol plug, by the way. We covered an auction 2 years ago for the TV show in Spring Valley, Minnesota. Two brothers. Okay, now I can remember prices pretty much, but names are my bugaboo. But these brothers, one of them started a winery in Spring Valley, Minnesota, and they had 4 daughters. And if you live around Rochester, everyone knows 4 Daughters Winery. It's awesome. But they started making their own alcohol, and they make their own bourbon with a little cherry tint to it. And it is unbelievable. You got to try that. Four Daughters Winery, Spring Valley. Check it out. But
Okay.
back to the most amazing auction.
For those late Christmas presents that you're
Yes.
still looking
Oh,
to get.
it's-
Yeah.
What's a Sigma anyway, Greg? What?
Okay, this is worth the wait time because
It always is.
John Deere 4055 tractor. So that's right in that, that 89 to 92 when I started.
Sweet
35.
spot. Mhm.
Again, it's not antique, but there was a 92 model with 22 hours on it on this auction. So this guy, this
92?
guy with R&M Motors just bought this thing, put it in the shed, almost as as an investment. So the setup here is going into the auction. The highest I'd ever seen was $93,000, and that was December 16th of 2016 in St. Edward, Nebraska, for 215 hour 4055.
How do you remember
Okay.
this stuff?
This thing sold for $275,000.
Oh my gosh.
And this is when the ag economy is turning down. Now it's a time machine. Obviously, it's a one-off.
Obviously.
But this is when I talk to Wall Street people about, hey, Machinery Pete, what's happening in the equipment market? How are conditions for new sales? One of the canaries in the coal mine I tell them I'm watching is, how long is the old money holding up? So when I say old money, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're not a 29-year-old farmer paying $275,000 for a 4055. You're a guy my age or older who's a shrewd operator, and when the good years were there, I mean, you know what to do with your money. So then when your favorite tractor shows up and it's brand frickin' new and it's 35 years old, it's like money doesn't matter, obviously. It's like I'm going to pay whatever I have to pay to get that.
Yep.
Now, that wasn't the only tractor on that sale. There was also, okay, how about this? A 2002 John Deere 7510 with 13 hours on it.
Wow.
Now,
13.
I've seen the exact same tractor sold. This is the importance of timing. Not just machinery market, but life, relationships, everything. Timing is everything. So this tractor sold, I want to say, it was like 11, 12 years ago, and it had 10 hours on it then. A guy in Tennessee owned it, and it brought like $100,000 then. So on the sale, April 29th, it brought 192. So is that inflation? Is that devaluation of money? Whatever. But the last tractor Tyne, another record on that sale was a 92 John Deere 4455. It had 2,260 hours on it. Now the highest I'd ever seen was 97,850, and that went 160. So I can't beat that in terms of a crazy auction for 2024. But again, I said things are choppy. So you've got old money that's being aggressive, whether it's for the right piece of ground or the right, like that Challenger MT865. It's like, I don't care. That's what I need. I'll pay $341.
Yeah.
Greg, but what's the craziest item you've seen auctioned off? Because I mean, you talk about prices, but what's the craziest item? I mean, like,
now let me preface this by saying every year, Greg, in recent years has done like a special series for us, and like one year he did a Christmas segment for us, and it was like, sleds and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, craziest item. I might need to dig on that one, Tyne. I guess
You do
nothing
some
is
cars?
really popping to my head in terms of unusual. I haven't seen any Cybertruck sold at auction. That would be
Imagine that.
that would be
But
interesting.
anything like anytime you go to these farm auctions, because I know sometimes you're like, I want to start a show where you go in these sheds and you find all of these things that are in the sheds that people. I mean, has anybody ever like tried to auction off their grandmother's urn with ashes in it? I'm just what have you
Tis the
seen?
season.
What category am I going to put that in my database?
I don't know, but that's what I
Grandma's,
want to know.
grandma's ashes.
Crazy things. That's
No,
what I
I
want to
saw
know.
an urn
Oh,
in 1989.
Hey,
That
I did see a burial crypt sold at auction once. I actually have a YouTube video on it.
This is
Did
what we
you
want.
really?
This is the juicy stuff we want, Greg. And do you remember?
And
Like,
by the
what?
way, it was from your state, Missouri. It was from
Oh,
Paris, Missouri. Wheeler Auctions, one of the greatest auction companies in North America. And they
Right.
have these 3 times a year, 2 or 3 times a year sales. And we actually filmed one, their big one in July, and it went from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
oh my gosh.
And they had, I think, 6 or 7 rings, and they sell everything. So I had a young guy. This is probably 10 years ago. He was driving through the lot. You're getting a scope of everything there, and he goes, "What the heck's that?" And it was a burial crypt. And I said, "Hey, can you shoot video of that on your cell phone?" That was right when cell phones were taking off. And he goes, "Yeah." So he sends me the video, and I don't think it sold for much, surprisingly. But up here north, we see used ice fish houses for ice fishing. So,
Nice.
and these people down, if you're down south, Missouri, or down south, you're like, ice fishing. What do you mean ice fishing? Well,
We know what it is, Greg. Give
Okay.
us credit, okay?
okay. But what you probably don't know is that you could probably have an ice house sell for $100,000 now.
No, stop that.
It's
Quit
like
it.
you go to the Lake of
So-
the Ozarks or whatever, and in the pontoons, the same thing. You might have $150,000 pontoon.
Crazy, stupid.
Same
Oh.
thing with an ice house. I mean, you can hopefully we'll be watching the Vikings in the Super Bowl. Some guy on a 100-inch plasma TV in his ice.
Possible.
Oh my
Possible.
gosh.
Greg,
See,
you
now
guys look good. You
My
look good.
experience of Ice House is from Grumpy Old Men, where they're in the ice house and don't they hit it with the car or something, or they drag it off the lake with the car? I don't know. Anyway,
If,
it's-
if,
there
if
even
you
enough-
guys, I don't know how many young, I hope Unscripted, you guys, I hope you have lots of young viewers. And for you young viewers, if you've never watched the movie Grumpy Old Men,
it's,
and you want to understand your grandparents,
it's so good.
watch number 1. Number 2 is great, but number 1. And by the way, my sister and her husband bought a place outside of Stillwater, Minnesota. And there's a scene in the second Grumpy Old Men where Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau
Yeah.
are sitting on a bench. My sister and brother-in-law own that property now on a lakefront in
No
Stillwater.
way.
And
That's
it's
awesome.
those are some of
That
my
is cool.
all-time favorite movies.
That is cool. Well,
That
did
is-
you guys even have enough ice last year for ice fishing? I feel like you didn't even.
No, I mean
Yeah.
it was 52 to 60 here in February last year.
Right,
And
I know. And you think about how many businesses rely on that as a business. I think
Yeah.
about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as well,
Right,
Clinton.
right.
Some of those areas. Like it's okay.
Hey,
So
I've got a what the Sigma that I think will translate back to Machinery Pete. So my what the Sigma this week, like craziest headline, has been about all of these drones in New Jersey. Right? Like what is going on? Now, old Clinton probably would have leaned toward the alien invasion, but I'm older and wiser now. And
He's
so
a
I'm more
conspiracy theorist, Greg.
skeptical. I'm more
he's a conspiracy
skeptical of
theorist.
the
I just want
of
you to
the
know
alien
that.
invasion, although I think it's still, on the list of possibilities. But Machinery, Pete, we've been talking a lot about spray drones in the last year or two. Have you seen that impact the sprayer market at all? Has it made its way?
Oh, I see how you
to
brought it around
auctions?
there, Clinton. Nice job.
See how I
you
got
brought
back to
around-
it?
Yeah,
See how I got back to it?
Segue. I have not honestly seen it impact used self-propelled sprayer values to this point.
Okay.
But I remember when drones were first becoming a thing, and I was my first thing where I actually wrote about it. I think I wrote a blog, and I said these suckers are going to change everything. I mean, everything. I could see instant applications for farmers. If you could get drone video of your equipment doing its thing in your fields in terms of resale value. As social medias and YouTube was exploding, I mean, our data would show it. If a farmer got me a video clip of their combine rolling in their field in northern Indiana, and then you work that into the listing, it just changed everything. And this was before the pandemic, when, an online bid, a guy in South Dakota was looking at your combine in Indiana, he'd be like, it's a long ways away. But if I could show them that drone video, they'd be like, oh yeah, I don't know, it just magically. And then the pandemic happened, and now there's no hesitancy for people to click the button 8 states away. So
Yeah.
Right.
drones have changed everything. They have not affected sprayer values yet.
Okay.
But I think you could maybe wrap that into our previous question of, and maybe that's a case for technology being efficient to take care of some of those high costs,
Right.
where you don't have to drop $400,000 on a new sprayer. You can just have a drone do it.
Okay, let's wrap things up for this podcast. What are your New Year's resolutions?
Oh.
Clinton, I'll let you go first.
Well, hit the gym, lose some weight, read some more books. The usual New Year's resolutions. No, I think there are some things I've always wanted to do, like some writing for me. I've always wanted to do. I may try to do that this year. That may be on my
2025
list of
sounds
things.
like a good year.
Yeah, maybe on my list of things to do. What about for you, Tyne?
Well, mine's not attainable, according to my coworker Matt. He asked me what mine was, and I said to get my shit together, get my life in order. And he goes,
Stop scaring him when you drive. Is that it?
he goes, maybe you should start smaller, Tyne. Yeah, touche. No, I mean, I haven't even. I don't make New Year's resolutions because I'm not going to keep them. So I mean, it's every year is do expense reports on time, get more organized. The things that I know aren't going to happen. But 2024 was a good year. 2025, I turned 40 next year. So
Oh my gosh.
mhm. Yep. There's a lot of things I wanted to accomplish by the time I was 40. You always think, oh, by the time I'm 30, I want to do this, 40, do this, 50, do this. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get some wild hair. I don't know.
Well, it comes on you in a hurry, and then I have kind of ignored it. I've just tried to ignore getting older, just like it's not happening. I don't know how else to do it, Machinery Pete.
Oh, hey, there's no alternative. I mean,
Right?
I remember when my dad turned 80, we had a party for. He's 87 now and doing great. But we were sitting around the little campfire there outside the cabin. I said, Dad, tell me what is 80 like? How does it feel? And he thought about it. I mean, he was probably having a Brandy Alexander at the time, and he's like, he goes, honestly, it feels like I'm 60, and it's a mindset thing.
Totally.
And for me, next year, I'm with you, Clinton. I need to lose a little weight. Actually, I was in Kentucky at an auction last week, and a guy came up and he said, Pete, you're putting on some weight.
Who says that?
They're honest.
I'm telling you, if I had $100 for every time that someone had said that to me, I'd have multiple hundreds of dollars. So it happens all the time.
Yeah, and maybe that's my one piece of advice. Okay, I know that we're on TV, and I know sometimes when you come up to us, Greg, I mean, there's people said some crazy things to you. I get it, but one thing to remember is we are human, we are people. So just remember that and be kind to us.
Yeah. No, it's
you don't have to say everything you think.
Right.
You're taller in person. You're fatter in person.
Yeah. I think outside of the weight, for me, maybe it's just when you get older, you start. I'm looking out the window right now, and there's a cardinal sitting there, a beautiful red cardinal on the white snow, and that's the thing for me is trying to find we hurtle through the day. We're just we're efficient. We're doing fun, great things. We're smashing, and we have great friends and stuff. But it's like 2 or 3 times a day, just sit and watch a cardinal for a minute, or watch the leaves blow, or you're out in the field. Life is beautiful, but we have to grab it. We got to stop. And I think
great advice.
We're in this petri dish of cell phones and social media that's changed the way we live our lives. And I think, we're old enough, we can remember kind of and again, not to be a cranky old guy and say it was all better back in the day, but just to take a minute to go, you know what, this is a great day, and I'm thankful for it.
There's a podcaster I like to listen to, and he always says, I think these people need to get outside and touch grass. And I think I think it's, you know what? We could all stand to get outside and touch a little more grass once in a while. I think that
Okay,
would be
before
okay.
you go for New Year's, earlier I said I had something to say on the alcohol front, and you guys are talking about, losing weight and being mindful of that. I've tried to be mindful of that this year. But apparently if you're looking for the lowest calorie drink this New Year's, okay? And after Christmas, if you still have Christmas celebrations, you need to put the eggnog down. Shocker.
Mhm.
Yeah, put it down. But one expert is suggesting just do it shots, okay? Because shots, there's like 100 calories apparently in the average shot. And so instead of sitting there and drinking a bunch of beer or all of that, apparently now they are suggesting just
That advice tip doesn't surprise me coming from you, Tyne, because you just get right to it. I mean, the issue, the thing to do, and hey, let's just do it.
everything's with a purpose.
Don't
I
take your time.
listen, Greg,
Just get straight to it.
as you're talking, I feel like I'm being seen at the moment. Like I need to slow down and just take time and enjoy the moment. I do not do that enough. I am a point A to point B, very tactical person. And I just want to check stuff off the list and get it done. That's my goal. Let's just get it done. Don't waste time. We don't need to talk about it much. Let's just get it done. So I need to take some
That's
time.
why this is called Unscripted.
I don't know if I can talk to my mom. She likes brandy. My mom and dad have a little brandy diet Coke every evening after dinner, and I don't know if I can talk her into just taking straight shots of brandy. I'll try.
You probably stick with it.
I
I think
wanna
it's
meet your
probably
parents.
working for her at this point.
I want to meet your parents. They sound wonderful.
Can they come to the supper club with us when we do the
They'll
show?
be on the
I think
podcast.
that would be great. I think that would be great.
Your mom and dad on the podcast?
Well, all the years, so we've been doing our TV show, Machine Repeat, 12 years now, and you guys know how it is. You got the 2-camera shot. You're interviewing a farmer, an auctioneer, and so I don't have your guys training or whatever. I always just say, I'll tell the person, hey, I'll do a little intro on camera too, and then we just kind of talk. So just ignore the cameras. So all these years of doing that, everyone's been fine with it except my dad. I told Dad, hey, just look at me when we're talking. And so I go, hey folks, Machine Repeat, this is my dad, Jerry. And we start talking, and he goes right to camera 2. And he just looks at the camera and he answers the question. That was awesome. But I do want to maybe I've talked to you guys know Don Green, our producer. Nobody better than Don Green. He's awesome. Makes Machine Repeat TV what it is.
Don just so everybody knows, Don has a mustache.
Yeah.
So
Don has a great 70s mustache. And
he only wears white New Balance shoes. He gets one new pair a year, and every single time he texts me. And in fact, this past year, Greg, I didn't get a text, and I saw him at Crop Tour, and he had on gray shoes, and I said, "Who are you?" I don't even know.
Don't even know who you are anymore.
What was the story with
gray shoes?
Well, I don't know if he was with one of you guys. Wasn't it a Wisconsin shoot on a forage situation or something where he had to board a flight, but he stepped in some stuff?
Ethanol plant. It was an ethanol plant. He stepped in the.
It was a puddle with just some gross fermenting grain just sitting in the puddle outside of the ethanol plant, and he stepped in it, and it smelled so bad.
Yeah,
he had to throw the shoes away
on a shoot.
Walk into
is one pair a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, so you were talking about Don.
What I'm trying to get Don to do is, if we can get out to my hometown of Benson, I would love to sit at the family table where we sat and had our dinner every night, and just get mom and dad sitting there and just a little 1-minute clips of mom and dad wisdom.
Let's do it. It's
2025.
Anything's possible, Greg.
My dad was a deer dealer when I was growing up, and his best friend in town growing up was the IH dealer. And I've asked him a lot of times, like, Dad, and this was the 1980s. I was like, wow, how did that work with you guys? And he goes, well, Scott, we're just friends and we compete. But, little things like that, I think resonate out. There's business lessons, but beyond that, just, everyone's parents, we should listen to their, the things they say.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom.
Yep.
So much wisdom. And it's a good time of year to hear wisdom. So hopefully when folks spend time with family, they'll pick up a few tidbits and some things to take along the journey for 2025.
Greg, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thanks, Greg.
You bet. Merry Christmas to you guys, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.
I'm serious. Greg is such a gift.
Oh, he is
His
absolutely,
wisdom.
absolutely. I just love how he recalls so many examples just off the top of his head.
Like I'm saying,
I
like I
mean,
think photographic like he like numbers,
wild.
he does not forget. They are like imprinted in his mind, and I don't.
I've seen him live in front of a crowd, and people just ask him a price, and
He
he'll
rolls
just be
it
like,
off.
"Oh
I
yeah, I
know.
saw that at auction. Here's the number." He's
It's
just so
crazy.
good at it.
He's very good.
Yeah.
So talented. One of the, we have a great team, an absolutely amazing team. I tell
Uh-huh.
everyone that. Why, they ask, "Do you love what you do?" And I'm like, "Absolutely," because we have an amazing team, and Greg's one of those. Greg, Chip. I mean, our whole production crew and staff. We're a small staff, but truly the best.
Absolutely, we are. Well, Tyne, it's been a lot of fun starting this in 2024, and I know Unscripted is going to continue in 25. So I'm looking forward to some more great conversations and some fun, exciting guests. And I don't know, maybe we'll do this little gig on the road once in a while in person together, which is always
That was fun at Milk. That was so much fun at Milk. A huge
was.
thank you to our sponsor, BASF, for helping make our podcast possible. A big thank you to Machinery Pete. And I am looking forward to our conversations that we're going to have in 2025.
All right, everybody, have a great one. We'll see you in the
Bye,
new year.
everybody.
Thanks for joining us. You can dive into more of Unscripted on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Clinton Griffiths.
And I'm Tyne Morgan. From all of us here at Farm Journal, keep it real as you live your life unscripted.
Unscripted is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.